Hydrocarbons, a RAFT show by Dehnbostel. Thanks. Okay. Hydrocarbons by Dehnbostel. Welcome to the evening news show. Today we'll be discussing hydrocarbons. What are they? Well, a carbon is an element with 4 valence electrons. Hydro comes from hydrogen, an element with 1 valence electron. They want to bond so that they have full valence shells. Here, after they bonded, hydrogen and carbon share these 2 electrons. Carbon gets to share one with hydrogen, and hydrogen shares one with carbon. So now, hydrogen has a full valence shell of 2 electrons, and carbon has an almost full valence electron of 5 electrons. Now, carbon still kind of wants to have a full valence shell, so he bonds with 3 other hydrogens. So it has a full valence shell. This process is called hydrocarbon bonding. But how do you name these new compounds? Well, it depends on the number of carbons used and the type of bonds. The method is simple. Count the number of carbons in the longest chain, and then see what bonds it's used between the carbons. You have the number of carbons to the type of bonding. Put the suffix and the prefix and the suffix together, and you get the word, the name of that compound. The hydrocarbon compound, in fact. Here are the rules for naming. If you have 1 carbon, the prefix is methane. If you have 2 carbons, the prefix is eth. 1 carbon is meth. 2 carbons is eth. 3 carbons is pro. 4 bute. 5 penta. 6 hexa. 7 hepta. 8 octa. Upside down slide. 9 is nana. 10 is deca. That's a lot of carbons. There can be more than this. There can be more than 10 carbons in a chain, but today we will only be working with carbons less than 10. Carbon chains with less than 10 carbons in it. Now, these are all the prefixes, the names of the carbons. The suffix, again, is the type of bonding it has. All single bonds, if the whole chain has just single bonds, they're just sharing, each element is sharing 1 electron with the other one, it's ane. 1 or more double bonds, when they're both sharing 2 electrons with the other element, the ending is ene. And when the element is sharing 3 electrons with the other element, then the ending is ine. Remember that. It'll come in handy later. Remember that carbon only has 4 valence electrons and only has space for 4 electrons to bond with. So, making a maximum number of bonds it can have is 4. Let's practice the skills we've learned so far. Here, we have 1 carbon, the white marshmallow, and then we have 4 hydrogens, the colored marshmallow. Now, all of the bonds between the carbons, well, there are no other carbons, so we consider them all single bonds. And the carbon to the hydrogen is all single bonds as well. The prefix for 1 carbon is meth, M-E-T-H. For 1 carbon. Now, with all single bonds, the ending is ane. You add those together, the title is methane. Okay. With this one, you have how many carbons? 1, 2, 3 carbons. The suffix for that is prop. Oops. All of the bonds are single bonds. The ending is ane. This hydrocarbon compound is propane. Here we have 1, 2 carbons, all single bonds. Can you guess what it is? Well, 2 carbons is eth, and all single bonds is ane. So the title of this one would be ethane. When there is a double bond or a triple bond, when there is a double or triple bond, the naming of the compound, you'll have to add another piece to it. So, I have an example here. When you have a chain of 4 carbons and there's a double bond, you have to start and name the main chain of carbon. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons. That's bute. With a double bond, the ending is ene. But you have to remember to mark where this double bond is. So you count 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3. You always pick the lowest number. So here, the lowest number is 1. So you put that in front of the name. 1 butane. Let's practice this quick. When you have when you've got two carbons, and then you have 2 carbons. You have a triple bond between the 2 carbons. 2 carbons makes eth. The triple bond is ine. So you call this ethine. Oh, because it was in the middle, it would just be 1. So you don't have to title that one, by the way. This one is a very long chain. Make sure you count all of the carbons in the longest chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The title for 8 is octa. Octa. The double bond here, you have to count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So you'd title it oct because it has 8 carbons in the longest chain, and then the double bond makes ene. So octene, but you put a 3 in the front of it because that's where the double bond is. So 3-octene. When I just did this one. If the chain of carbons is not completely straight, or there is there are carbons attached to the main chain, those must be noted too. So as you see here, there's a long chain of carbons, but as well there's also an extra carbon attached, bonded there. So first you name the main chain of carbons. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The suffix The prefix for 6 is hexa. They're all single bonds, so the ending is ane, hexane. Then you name the extra piece. It's just one carbon that's extra from the group, and then, so one is meth, and then it's a single bond, so it's ane, methane. Then you count where it came from. You count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so it's 4, or you could count 1, 2, 3. Again, you want to pick the lowest number. So, you'll pick 1, 2, 3. 3, methane, hexane. If there are multiple appendages, write all of them in alphabetical order. Make sure you write all of them. Note, once you've chosen a direction to count from, you're committed to it. So that means you have to count from the same direction every time you label an appendage. So here we have this lovely piece of work. So let's count the longest, see if we can count the longest chain, yeah? So we've got, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we could go down or we could keep going across. I think I'm going to keep going across because it looks like it'll be longer over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 is the longest chain in this element. The prefix for 7 is hepta. There are all single bonds, so you know that the main name of this element is going to be heptane. Yes? Then you're going to find out where the extra appendages are. Well, there is one here, and there is one here. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, or it could be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, because 3 and 4 is less than 4 and 5, we're going to stick with the 3 first. So the main title of it is heptane, which is the longest chain of 7 with all single bonds. And then the 1 and 2 extra ones are both going to be methane because they're both one carbon and they both have all single bonds. Then, so it'll be 1, 2, 3 methane, 4 methane, hexane. Does that make sense? Alright. That's all we have for tonight with hydrocarbon bonding with Sarah Dehnbostel. We'll see you next time on the evening news show.